Hey guys, so I'm going to tell you something that probably won't surprise anyone if you actually truly know me. But if you take me into a bookstore, there's a pretty good chance you're going to lose me. And if you take me into Apothecary, well, you might as well cancel your afternoon plans because I'm that person that's opening jars and smelling herbs, and I'm reading every label I can find, and I'm comparing one herb to another. And before I know it, I'm sitting cross-legged on the floor with maybe 3 books open, 6 jars around me, and completely forgetting what time of day it is. So I try not to go when I actually have plans. So honestly, I could probably live in an apothecary and might turn my house into one day. Like, we'll do the living room as a bookstore and we'll do the kitchen as the apothecary, right? They're my happy places. To most people, that probably looks very strange. But to an herbalist, we tend to do things that make us look strange anyway, right? So we don't just look at the plants, right? We observe them. And one of the very first ways we observe them is with our sense of smell, right? So I've had people ask me, why do herbalists always smell the herb? And it's a good question, because I'm not smelling lavender simply because I enjoy the fragrance. I mean, maybe a little. But some people actually don't like the smell of lavender. But that's not really why I smell things, right? I'm gathering information. Remember what we talked about, right? Plants don't make medicine, they make chemistry. So sometimes one of the very first clues about that chemistry is educated through our nose. The plant's introducing itself before I even open my first herbal book, right? So let's take our friend lavender here. And I won't have to even ask most of you what this smells like. You can probably already imagine it in your head. It's amazing when you stop and think about it, right? One aroma, and almost everyone can picture the same plant, right? Before I know anything about lavender's traditional uses, I just learned something about it through its smell. And that wonderful aromatic scent is information about the plant, right? The plant's already started to tell me the story, right? We're about stories. Then there's valerian root. And if you've ever smelled valerian root before, I don't know if I want to be the one to introduce you to it. Let's just say it's memorable, right? Some people say it smells like dirty socks. Some people say it smells like old cheese. I'm in the cheese camp. It smells like cheese to me. I've heard sweaty gym clothes. I've heard wet dog. And honestly, that's up to your perception. So I can't necessarily say they're right or wrong. But yeah, valerian still smells the same, guys. It's interesting. So here's what's fascinating, right? I don't smell valerian root and think, well, that's a terrible plant. Ugh. I mean, I probably wouldn't turn it into a perfume, right? I smell valerian and I think, this plant has a completely different chemistry than lavender does, right? The smell is teaching me something. It's introducing itself, pleasant or unpleasant. And again, I've actually gotten used to it and it doesn't bother me as much. But if your first whiff, you're like, oh, aroma is information, right? And that's a pretty big shift in herbalism, right? You stop asking, does this herb smell good? And you start asking, what is this plant trying to teach me, right? 2 different questions. So let's do a little homework. Yes, I'm actually always going to assign some sort of homework because I'm a hands-on type of person anyway. You can read all the books you want, but until you actually get outside, not going to do any good. So next time you're outside, find a plant that you have positively identified. Notice I emphasize Positively identified. This is not your permission to just go running through the woods grabbing random leaves because some lady on YouTube told you to go smell plants. I really rather not get that message on the comments saying, Sarah, I accidentally went and rubbed poison ivy all over my hands because I'm trying to become an herbalist. Let's not do that. Poison ivy, poison oak, poison sumac. We need to leave them exactly where they are, and we will appreciate their beauty and respect them from a distance. Deal? Guys, don't go rubbing random plants on you unless you know what they are. I don't want that in the comment section. So now go find something you do know. Peppermint, lemon balm, rosemary, lavender. Maybe you've got thyme growing in your garden. And I want you to rub one leaf gently between your fingers and smell it, right? Like really smell it. Don't rush. Ask yourself, what do I notice? Is it a bright scent? Is it a fresh scent? Is it sharp? Is it sweet? Is it woodsy, right? Earthy. That's where I would put this one. It's kind of earthy. Does it even have a citrusy smell to it, right? There isn't a right answer. You're simply just learning to observe the plant, right? And that's one of the first skills I think is helpful to develop as an herbalist, right? Attention. So why am I making such a big deal about smelling plants? Because honestly, I think plants are communicating with us all the time, right? Not with words. The plants start talking to you, okay? But through the characteristics, right, they've been given, right? Their color, their texture, their shape, their aroma, even the place they choose to grow, right, tells you a lot about them. Now, before anyone misunderstands me, I'm not saying that you can identify a plant's traditional uses just by smelling it, right? That's not what we're saying. That's not what I'm saying at all. You still need some good herbal books, right? And you've still got to, put some energy behind it, but we have to carefully study as well, and we still need proper plant identification before, we make our own poison ivy plant cream. But I do think observation should come before ever trying to learn anything, right? Because once you've met the plant, the information in your herbal books starts to make so much more sense, right? When I pick up an herb, my first question isn't, what does this herb do? It could be, right? I mean, there's a multitude of first questions, but one could be, what do I notice, right? Does it have a strong aroma or none at all? Is that aroma bright, earthy, sweet, sharp, resinous, right? Do I feel a cooling sensation in my nose when I smell it, right? Every observation is another clue, right? So I always like to relate things to life. So let's think about cooking for a minute, right? If you're making spaghetti sauce and someone handed you rosemary, or you're like, hand me the spices, and somebody handed you rosemary instead of basil, well, if you smelled it first, you would know immediately before you just dumped it into your sauce, right? You wouldn't need to read the label. Your nose already knows the difference. And that's exactly what happens when you spend time sniffing the herbs. Your senses are another way to use and learn, right? So here's something else I love doing. I love comparing fresh herbs to dried herbs too. So sometimes they smell remarkably similar, and other times they're completely different. Fresh lemon balm, right, has this bright, fresh, lemony aroma that fills the air the moment you rub a leaf between your fingers, right? A month later, after you've dried it, some of that brightness will naturally fade from the plant. It's not because it's gone bad. It's simply a part of understanding that the plant is not staying in that continuous state and it's changing over time. And that's one reason I still open my jars every now and then, right? I'm checking on the herb. Does it still smell vibrant? Does it still smell like itself, right? It's another observation and another way to make sure you're rotating things appropriately in your apothecary. So, no two plants will ever introduce themselves the same way. Lavender, right, walks in the room like a toddler, knocking over things, like, enjoy me. Here I am. I smell wonderful. Valerian, well, Valerian definitely introduces itself. Maybe like your teenage son's gym bag, but maybe it's a little too enthusiastic about here I am. But there are herbs that are much quieter, right? Some don't release much aroma until you gently crush the leaf. Some have scents that are very subtle, and some might completely surprise you once you go out there, right? So I encourage you not to rush. Spend some time with these plants, right? Notice what's changing when you interact with them. Notice what changes through the season. Just because you noticed it in the spring doesn't mean it might not be different in the fall, right? Sometimes the introduction doesn't happen until you slow down, right? And that's just what happened to me. Once I started actually growing and interacting with these plants, the monograph stopped feeling like random information, right? Just a data dump. I'd smell lavender and I'd read what herbalists have traditionally appreciated that aromatic quality for. Then it made sense. I've made that link and connection in my head. I experienced marshmallow root's slippery texture, right, from a cold infusion. And then I read about the mucilage, and that made sense. Instead of trying to memorize words on a page, along with everything else we have to remember, I was connecting the words to something I had experienced, right? I can see mucilage until the cows come home, but until you experience it, you're not going to get it. And it's a completely different way of learning. So here's something else I'd love you to try. I don't want you to try to learn 5 new herbs. Find one. Learn it really well. Look at it, hold it, smell it. I mean, you can get those little culinary kits of herbs and grow them on your countertop if you're limited for space, right? Read about it. Then go back and smell it again. I think you'll notice the second time you completely missed something the first time. And that's the beauty of herbalism to me, right? The plant doesn't change. We do. Our understanding does. As we learn more, well, we notice more, right? I think one of the biggest mistakes I made as a beginning herbalist was believing I had to memorize everything before I could really enjoy herbalism. I'd open a book, I'd highlight half the page, write a whole bunch of notes, and then just move on, right? Before long, it all blended together, right? So I wasn't slowing down enough and actually spending time with the plants, right? We all live with this incredible rush of feeling that we're running out of time, but sometimes that's just not how we learn. So today, when I bring home something new, whether dried, fresh, growing, whatever, I spend some time with it first. I look at it. I notice the shape of the leaves. I pay attention to the color, even if it's only in a book, right? Because I can't grow everything here. If I have it in person and it's appropriate, don't go breaking leaves at other people's houses or tearing up nurseries. I smell the leaf, right? I open the jars and smell them, right? I do all this before I read a word about it. Then I open my books and something amazing happens. The words on the page aren't describing a stranger anymore. They're describing something that I have recently encountered myself. And that simple change completely transformed the way I learn versus currently nibbling on a piece of time as we speak. So I don't want you to memorize another list. I'm trying to break this down to help because it is overwhelming, right? Don't learn 10 herbs. Find that one, right? Or if you're already familiar with one, go and explore another one, right? Heck, spend some time in your culinary cabinet smelling those, right? So if somebody ever hands you the wrong thing, you don't accidentally, drop an herb you don't want into your spaghetti sauces, right? Smell it, notice the texture. Sit down with a good herbal book and read the monograph, right? You've been using rosemary for years in cooking, but do you even understand the properties about it? See if your own observation with using this plant actually connect with what you're going to read. And you might be surprised how easy it is to remember it on the go forward. Not because your memory suddenly improved, but because you've connected information with an experience, right? And next time you start studying an individual herb, or we study one together, you're going to notice different things about what I'm doing, right? If you're doing them themselves, right? I'm not going to start listing off benefits. I'm not jumping straight into the monograph. We're going to meet the plant, right? We're going to observe it. We're going to ask questions. We're going to notice what makes it unique. There's 1,000 videos out there that say, do this because of that. I want to teach you how to think. Then you'll open the books. Then you'll see what generations of herbalists have traditionally appreciated. And to me, that's just a much more enjoyable way for me to learn. And honestly, I think it's a more memorable way to learn too, right? One of the things I love most about herbalism is it does teach me to slow down in my busy life, right? In a world where we want quick answers, right? 5-minute videos, herbs to tell us exactly what we need, right? Be curious, pay attention, ask better questions. And I think that's a lesson that reaches far beyond the apothecary. So maybe when you read your next monograph, before you watch another herbal video, right? Before you memorize another list, meet the plant. Let it introduce itself to you. And then let the books help you understand what you've already begun to notice. I think you'll find that herbalism becomes a lot less overwhelming then, and a lot more enjoyable, unless you're out there rubbing that poison ivy on you. So if you've enjoyed this video, I'd love to know in the comments, what's one herb that you always stop to smell? And if you smell valerian, tell me what you think it smells like in the comments, because I don't think anyone's come up with the same description twice. I always love it. I'm always interested to see what everybody's olfactory reminds them of, especially with valerian. So until next time, guys, stay rooted, stay curious, and as always, keep growing your grace.